Hello, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the subject of competing brands and actually not name dropping, but I'm going to talk to you about specific brands because we haven't mentioned them before. We do believe that it's good that people are out there passing and spreading the message of the transdermal gospel, or this idea that the skin is going to play a key role in us helping to overcome many things in the future, including our two major deficiencies, vitamin D and magnesium. And so we don't want to come down on people that are bringing that information to the public and helping get that out there. But we do need to make some points on if there is any false practices or fake claims or anything like that we see as being maybe less than transparent. Sometimes I guess people can be fooled themselves into what they're holding in their hand as well. So there's distributors and resellers and all these different levels to it. But in general, we can point out a few distinctions and get some clarity there. So we wanted to start with Now brand, this Now brand that people see around everywhere. It's one of the bigger brands. They have, flakes, and they have tons of other stuff too. They don't just do magnesium. They do tons of like oils, essential oils, and like body oils, and even just base oils for massage. I think they do a lot of supplements too. They've been around for a while. But anyway, so we tried to contact them about their certification of origin because their products say that they're from the Netherlands, and it's from the Zechstein Sea. And in their email, they responded, "Oh, we've been working with this person for 15 years or whatever," which is kind of odd because the stuff wasn't discovered until about, maybe about 13, 14 years ago anyway. So they were really on the point, or they've since changed from their original producer. I don't know. But all I do know is that they won't give you a certificate of origin. So they won't give you a certificate of origin. They call that proprietary. So they don't have to tell you where they're getting anything from, which is strange for magnesium because it's not like it's proprietary like Coca-Cola, where we're not going to tell you all the things that we use to make this so you can take this and run with it. No. This is proprietary for a base molecule, like magnesium chloride. Oh, it's proprietary. And it's like, wait a minute, how is that proprietary? Is that trade secrets because you're getting it from someone that can get it for cheap? Well, I don't know. So there is some way of protecting it, and you can't force them to disclose it. I mean, you could. A doctor or someone could write a letter, or maybe even a competitor can file a lawsuit if there's claims there that are false. So I mean, there's many ways to get a third body in there to kind of ask people what's really going on. But that's a lot of work, and a lot of energy. So the best way to do it is just to see if people are telling you the truth about where their city is that they're getting things from. Most of these places will not tell you about a city. They will never tell you about, they will just say Netherlands Zechstein, because Zechstein is covered. You can use that name abusively. Netherlands you can't use as abusively if you're saying it's sourced from there, unless people are shipping through there and they're calling that sourced. So Asia can be shipping through the Holland port system, which is one of the bigger port systems in the world, or at least in the Western world. And all of these, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, the word "dam" at the end, these are all these ports. And so just trying to, or even Vendam, I guess, where the original source is from. But so just trying to get some clarity here. Why will they not give you a certificate? They just said flat blank, we will not give you a certificate. We do not have one. But we have good, great products, and we've been working with the same people for a long time. We know what we're doing. It's all good. And then they put the parentheses proprietary. So we believe that this is fake, that this is not a real, this is not really coming from Netherlands, at least not from the Vendam source, the actual original source where all this stuff comes from. There's only one source in the Netherlands that he has this cosmetic batch controlled process. The rest is technical grade magnesium used for de-icing roads, and it's undiscerning. So it can have other things built into it. It can have more potassium or calcium or different things that are going to make it harder for the body to absorb the chloride molecule is what we're selling it for, the magnesium chloride, and it's natural oligo elements, but not like potassium and all these other things that are going to block. They're not going to. They always end up extracting that stuff out so they can get it back to the pure magnesium chloride, and then they run it through analysis once it's been sterilized or cleaned up. They call it upgrading in the industry. And so they just sterilize it with solvents, and then boom, you have a great different levels of products. Now we have human grade, cat grade, food grade, whatever. And so, but these are all coming from this, heavily extracted or solvent, either extracted or solvent added. These are added at some point, post extraction to clean, to chemically treat the magnesium, to separate it from other contaminants and even just other minerals which don't work with it. Like there's things in there that are not going to be that are going to hamper that molecule's ability to work. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you're getting these certificates. Now this is more of a European practice than an American practice, because they just hide everything behind proprietary if they can. I mean, until there's a lawsuit or some other pressure comes in. And then typically they disclose more privately, but they'll disclose and be like, okay, whatever. But it doesn't mean they're going to disclose to their public or anything like that. They may stop writing something if you get a judgment or whatever. But anyway, so the goal is just to find places that will tell you the name of the city, where it comes from, maybe even give you engineers where you can call them. Something very transparent. Like, why would they be hiding where they're getting their base magnesium from? Do you know what I mean? These are not something that you need to keep secret if it's coming from this central place that anyone can contact. I mean, as soon as you see a logo on my bottle that says Zechstein inside, you can type that, Google that, and call them. And then there you are. You're in touch with we're not hiding anything. Why are they hiding something? It's not like we're asking them for a proprietary formula that they've created, but we're just asking for the certificate of origin and authenticity. So that's not coming through. So Now Brands is off the chart. They're using the wrong stuff, and we can't figure that out. So that's out. And so now you have Ancient Minerals. Ancient Minerals is another big one online, and they're a great marketing company, and they have a lot of good stuff they have a lot of good articles, and they really were one of the pioneers in this. They were working with Dr. Mark Sirkis, who wrote the book on transdermal magnesium. But since all of these things happened, since many years, I guess you could say, he's kind of unpartnered with them and is kind of doing his own thing. And has there been a fallout or something? I don't know, but there's definitely like some division there. And so, but it doesn't matter. That's not as important. What's important is that you find on their website, they have an old certificate dating 7 years old certificate on their self-certified label called Genuine Zechstein, which they created themselves. And then they self-certify that with a certificate coming from the Netherlands. Now, you can get certificates from the Netherlands easily because you can just send a sample from China to a lab in the Netherlands, and then you can get that certificate and say, see, look, we have a certificate for these samples. They won't control the origin of those samples. They will trust the origin or maybe the shipping. Maybe they have like some stamp or something like that, but it's very loose. You don't really know exactly how it's not like it's a, they're not paying an agent to come and trace all that, right? So it's a lower level of control. And so then anybody can get a certificate or even an analysis from a lab coming from Holland. That's easy. But the problem is where is the source actually coming from? And so they won't reveal their source either, with the exception of that document. That document dates 7 years ago. Now, apparently they used to work with the actual original source. I know because I've contacted them. And they used to, but now they do not anymore. So that's easy to figure out because the source is not getting orders from them anymore. But where did they go? So a lot of people, once they expand out and start growing, they start to realize that it's too expensive to get this stuff, and then they go into plastic, or they just kind of switch and go into a different mode. And so then they realize that it's it's too pricey, or sometimes they'll keep some of their Zechstein and then they'll just order some cheaper stuff and then use that for cosmetics and different things that they're blending. And so they'll just kind of like retain their Zechstein claims somewhat half honestly because they're like, well, we used to have it. It's still kind of hanging around in there. There's probably a few drops in everything. So they just kind of retain it through that. But the truth is, they're no longer ordering from there, and they're getting solvent extracted stuff, and hopefully not technical grade stuff, which is even worse. And that's actually technically illegal in Europe to be certified for cosmetic use, but in America, it's like it's wild, the Wild West to some degree. So so we don't want that. I mean, you can see that they'll use it for flakes or something, which is maybe less, more going to just be mixed into bathwater or something. Like I can see them using the tech grade to build a flakes industry. And so, why do they do this? Because they think that people don't really care about the molecule of magnesium. And to their credit, they're kind of right. But the problem is that then everybody gets a half spectrum magnesium, so they never get the detoxification powers, the chelation, bonding, uptake, membrane transport, and all these things at a heightened degree that they would if the magnesium molecule came from a natural state, meaning that nature had spent 250 million years producing that state, and then therefore we were able to get that highly pure, meaning separated from contaminants and even potassium and calcium and all those other things, and becoming almost like a clear looking stone, which they call bischofite. They also call it white gold in Holland. So this is what you want. And this, like gold, you can't recreate. You have to find it. And so this has been found already, and there's a great abundance of it, but it's underneath Europe. And so they just kind of go around that because Asia is the biggest exporter of minerals in the world, and they can give it to you for pennies on the dollar. You can have a whole range of products with creams and lotions, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races. And but the problem is it's all solvent extracted. It's not, not to mention Tibetan exploitation and everything that they've done since they've taken over that mountainous region, and that's where a lot of it comes from, the Kimdai Basin and then some of it in Mongolia and other areas, but in general, it's the Kimdai Basin, which is like kind of in between. It's in Tibet. Well, I guess it borders on both countries, but Tibet is part of China right now, so it was an autonomous zone. But anyway, and so these two brands are not doing something right here, and it's hard to get any more up-to-date stuff on their website. They're dating it from back then because that's when they used to use it, probably. But so maybe they'll update once they find out about this podcast. They'll probably update it and find another way to hide it or whatever, just like they did big articles on why they use plastic over glass, and they're just doing whatever they can to try to save face on what they're doing when once you realize what glass does to the magnesium molecule, plastic does, you abandon it because, the plastic molecules come in contact with the magnesium molecule, and the magnesium has all the keys and locks to your cells. So it brings the plastic particles all the way down into the inner kingdom, all the way down into your cells. And so it gets a perfect delivery vehicle, which otherwise would have been stopped at different stages. From getting down in there. So it's a really dangerous way to play and weaponize magnesium, one of the most essential, ubiquitous inner realities at the intercellular level, intracellular level, and then load that up with plastics. So that's not intelligent at all. And then once more, it's also, it's just a price thing. That's really what it is. They're just saying that to justify the fact that they're trying to save money on this, that, and the other, instead of doing things right and building something that's more difficult and maybe with more breakage and more weight. And you could say dinosaur, oh, it's just a heavy profession. You just can't get it. But it's not true. There's, you can get a bottle of glass bottled water still at Randall's from Norway or Italy for $1. Right? So, there's still some reality possible here. Okay. So we don't want to get caught up in all of that. We're just doing it because this is the only way we could, save the money and everything else. So, it takes, principle to hold on to values despite what, everyone else is doing. So, So those two are the biggest brands. Now there's other brands out there, of course. We've seen a few other ones. What are some big ones? I don't know. There's one with, I guess, like with, I don't know, that tennis player, what's her name, Venus Williams, Serena Williams. She kind of partnered up with somebody, and they're doing like a pain spray, I think they call it. So you have this kind of thing, which yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I think they're actually using the Zextone. How much of it, I don't know. And will they use it in their cosmetic formulations or whatever? So that's the other thing is all these big companies they create these formulations. It's not because they're really thinking about membrane transport and how the magnesium is going to help you at a cellular level. They're thinking about copyright and trademarking, which is like why I don't like Shark Tank and all these other kind of entities because they just want to find a way to protect everything. They don't understand the concept of open source and how powerful that can be. I mean, it doesn't mean that everything has to be like, free. Like, I don't mean open source, like, Google gives you free emails and then therefore you go to Google because it's free. That's not open source. Open source means that, that there's a transparency about the structure of that software or whatever that allows for clarity from both multiple angles. And I guess you could say like something like blockchain or whatever is another type of thing like that where it tries to, I mean, it can still be controlled, that's the problem, but it tries to create a ledger in between banks and people, between people and money exchange, which is not the banks per se, but which can be monitored by anyone at any time online so that it can't be tricked into, it can be an anonymous and autonomous ledger. Um, so that's just like transparency ideas. But a lot of these transparency ideas, they don't want that. They want to keep it. So our philosophy at Heart of Traditions is, hey, look, this can be stolen by anybody. But if anybody wants to steal this stuff at this price, put it in glass, and distribute it to the world, well, then they're doing good works. So why not more of that? I mean, we've only touched 1% of the market with all the magnesium needs and deficiencies. So more power to that. We're not going to try to control that. And even if some big player comes along and does that exact thing, and I'm like eating my own words, it'll be great because over time that'll just develop into more and more activity around that. So anyway, this is another thing that I just don't get into is all these complex. We got to add aloe vera and MSM and do all these things. Sometimes some ideas can be beneficial, especially if you're respecting one thing with another thing. Meaning, okay, you take CBD topically and then you take magnesium topically. Maybe you take one day, the other the next day. This kind of alternation. And this respects each product but allows for a different kind of action to happen. Maybe something that dries, something that brings fat, something that does this, something that regenerates, but different ways that things work on the body. I got that. But trying to just combine it all so you can keep the copyright on the patent of the whatever it is and call that, that's the way we've been doing business. Okay, so I'm not knocking that, but I'm saying that there's another way to do business. And so I don't want to go that route. But so anyway, so that's the other thing is all these complex things that formulations which do not help and definitely hinder magnesium's transport, cellular transport capacity, which is one of the most key features of magnesium. I mean, it keeps calcium from flooding the cells. It keeps calcium from flooding the tissues at the cellular level because it allows for kind of a natural calcium channel blocker and allows that limiting effect of magnesium, which softens and flexibilizes, I guess you could say, renders flexible the calcium matrix. And just like with your teeth, if they were just hard, it would be brittle, right? So you need that flexible matrix around that lattice. And that's the magnesium. So just knowing this, these two are out, at least for me. I mean, I wouldn't touch them because you have the plastic and then you have the certificate snafu. You just can't figure anything out. So and then you have all the non-dilution, or you don't even know if they're diluting it. You don't know if they're mixing it with something else. They don't leave it up and open in a way where it can be recontrolled. When you have Zechstein Inside logo on there, you can take that same bottle and the same lab that invented, or not invented, but that brought that brine up to the surface and put it in a bottle. That same company can rescan it and go, yeah, this is ours. This is what we know. And as soon as you do all these other kind of hoops and tricks, like no, you can't do that anymore. You couldn't figure out what was what with because you've changed it and transformed it and cut something out and added this and whatever. So that's what they like to do. So be careful with all the fake stuff. And those two brands, there's other brands out there that any of the other big brands, like I saw one at Walmart one time, and I've done all these market studies on this way back, but I'm just forgetting the exact name. But there's a big brand, at Walmart. I think you can even find it, and but they're using like plastic, and and their prices are so cheap that you kind of wonder if they're not mixing with something because they're just making a very small margin, very, very small margin. And so sometimes things are not the right price. And it's not because a certain level they get bigger and they can expand more and they need that. I get that. I understand that different levels demand different realities to them. But I do also know that there is such thing as true price. And some of the true price can be reflected even at the very beginning stage of a business. A lot of the people think that people just they had low prices, like big businesses had low prices, and then as soon as they had a hegemony on the market, well then they raised all their prices, and this is a common economic fallacy. This does not happen, even with like Standard Oil and Rockefellers and some of these people that we hate, or dislike or whatever for what they became. But in their inception, some of these groups came on and found the true price and stuck with it. And they were able to lower prices over time and became famous. And then, okay, maybe they got greedy and they just they're no longer hungry and whatever. But what I'm saying is that true price can be understood from someone at the beginning of their path. And I think that some of these prices out there are too low for this product. They're too low, and I think that it's a quality product, and what it can do at the qualitative level is so powerful that it should be. I mean, even our products, which are like $25 for a 2-month bottle, and the other guys are probably half that, right? But it's still $3 a week to heal the deficiency of the century and keep the glass and keep all the non-dilution and Zechstein origin and actually coming from this natural state stone, clear stone, like to keep all that in place. Is that $3 a week? I mean, not even a week, because you're not going to do it more than 3 or 4 months, 5 months out of the year. So, I mean, you're at like $50, $60 for the year. I mean, it's doable. So if we go too low, you could probably find our same type of product somewhere for like $2 a pop. Well, there's a lot cheaper, but it's also go for it. That's just the biggest efficiency in the world. 800 processes in your body. Yeah, go for it. That's the smart place to spend, to go cheap. They do that. It's like almost like you're buying $100,000, disco, nightclub, and you spend like $10 on the needles that everything runs through, the whole sound system, that or maybe $1 million club with $100,000 sound system. Let's put it that way. So you got a $100,000 sound system, and you run everything through the $10 needles instead of the $100 needles. So it's almost like that's the stupidest place to like not spend the money, right? I guess you could say that about eggs and bread and milk and salt and all these other things. These base products, butter, these are the places you want to spend the most money. If your butter costs you $7 a pop, then get 5 of them and do it for the month, and that'll be the $35 expense on butter. If your broth costs $50 to make, it costs $50 to make a soy-free, non-soy fed broth that comes from different, whatever animals that have been fed properly. Then that's the new normal. It's $50. You make a month worth of broth, and so be it. You're just learning how to do it. And even with the $50, you could even use glass bottled water, because I do that. So you can get like amazing broth from that. But you just have to adapt to that right price. Anyway, so hopefully that can help some people sift through some of the fakeries and get the right stuff. Come check us out at theheartoftradition.com for the real stuff with the logo and the glass. And we also have a lot of free health tips, podcasts, books, all sorts of good stuff. Most of it for free. And so come on out and check us out, theheartoftradition.com.